morning, everybody. If you could please come in and sit down. Thank you. Hey, y'all in the back. Come sit down. Come sit down. I'm on it. I'm on it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Veronica Erb, and my pronouns are they and she. I am today's volunteer host. It's my first time, so give me some good energy. Woo! Thank you. I'm honored to be one of the voices gathering us together today in the spirit of fellowship and shared values. And I am glad you are here. I'm glad you are here on this planet, and I'm glad you are here in this room, whether virtually or physically. No matter how often or for how long or how recently you've come to the Ethical Society, you are a special part of it. Okay, for the folks in the room, it's phone time. So, when someone's phone goes off during program, it interrupts our speakers and performers. So if you have not yet silenced or turned off your phone, please do it. Maybe pretend to do it to give the people who haven't a little cover. Are we all good? I'm making eye contact. Okay, we're good. Let's get started. Our musical guests today are Ben Van Haars on handpan and Jim Iber on guitar. All of their selections today are original compositions. They will now perform Under the Moon. Thank you, Ben and Jim. Absolutely beautiful as usual. Here we go. The handpan was created in Switzerland. That's what we were hearing Ben play. And it was inspired by instruments from Trinidad and Tobago, India, Thailand, and Indonesia. All right, each week we read the Ethical Education for Youth core values to remind us of our shared commitments. Today, our core values reader is Calvin Jones.
Every person is important and unique. Every person deserves to be treated fairly and kindly. We can learn from everyone. We are a part of this earth, we cherish it and all the life upon it. We can learn from the world around us by using our senses, minds, and feelings. We are members of the world community, which depends on the cooperation of all people for peace and justice. We can learn from the past to build for the future. We are free to question. We are free to choose what we believe. We accept responsibility for our choices and actions. We strive to live our values.
Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, Calvin. And now our amazing students will head downstairs. You all know where to go. Where's Anne? Oh, there we go. It is now time for opening words, when we get to learn more about our fellow community members. This is a time to deepen our connections with one another. Please welcome Anne Duncan to the stage.
Hello everyone, my name is Anne Duncan and my pronouns are she, they. As a new member, I wanted to use these opening words as an opportunity to introduce myself to y'all. So, the most important thing to know about me is that I am a scientist. I feel like this has always been an aspect of my personality, and I was lucky enough to have parents that encouraged me in questioning how the world works. But while my parents encouraged me, not everyone else did. I still remember taking an entry exam for middle school where the essay question was, what would you do if you were invisible for 24 hours? Now, I don't really know what the right answer to this question truly was. Were they trying to figure out if we would self-incriminate in an essay question about all the questionable activities we would engage in if no one could see us? Would the most eligible student be the most boring one? Well, this is where my scientist brain kicked in. I said I would visit the schools I had applied to see how they acted when they did not think they were being watched. I think this is a perfectly good answer for a fourth grader who has the scientific persuasion but hasn't had any scientific ethics classes yet. Unfortunately, the majority of schools saw anxiety instead of a young scientist's first steps towards designing an experiment. Only got into one of the middle schools. Throughout middle school and high school, I continued to enjoy science. So when it became time to apply for colleges, I knew without a doubt I wanted to, 1, get out of Texas, and 2, be a biologist. But to address the first requirement, I chose a college in Minnesota, but the second requirement needed a little bit more refining. At that point, I had been able to rule out 2 areas of biology that I didn't really want to study, medicine and plant biology. Unfortunately, my first upper-level class I ever took was taught by a professor who specialized in plant biology, and the lab portion of the class would be based on her research. This was an important part of me learning to be a scientist. I had to actually test my hypothesis that I did not want to study plants. I had only ever learned about them in class, and unfortunately, my otherwise fantastic biology courses did a terrible job of making plants seem interesting. Once I was actually forced to research them and learn more about plants, I fell in love with the topic. I knew I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to be the first person to learn something about plants. So I ended up going to graduate school and studying plant bacterial diseases. My entire thesis is filled with facts that I was the first person to learn. Now, none of these findings were earth-shattering. You've probably not heard anything about them, which is why I'm not going into details, because that's like 20-minute conversation right there. But I helped expand our understanding of how plants protect themselves against disease. After graduation, I moved to St. Louis to work at Bayer, where I conducted studies and write reports for various governments around the world to get genetically modified crops deregulated. As I know that is the most controversial thing I've said in the last couple minutes, feel free to ask me questions about this downstairs after platform. I want to thank everyone for being so welcoming to me so far, and I look forward to getting to know all of you better.
And thank you for that. It was so insightful, not only into your academic journey, but also just the culture in the United States. So thank you. If you are a member and would like to share opening words, we will happily get you on the schedule. You can contact our director, Amy Miller, or Carol Beer, or send an email to the platform speakers team. The team also actively recruits members to give opening words, so you may also be approached and asked to share. If you are asked, I hope you will take advantage of the opportunity to share about yourself. Let's welcome Ben and Jim back for our second musical selection. It's Something.
So it's kind of an unusual name, this one, but it's an unusual timing in this piece, and we've tried to count it. I don't think we've got it figured out yet. If you can figure out the count on this, we'd appreciate it. So all I know is it's something. Okay.
Thank you so much. Also, Jim, you were playing with a slide while standing up, which was really impressive. I feel like mostly I see folks sit for that. Let's see here. Okay. Did you know that the guitar may have its ancestry in Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt? Cool. All right. It is now time for our mindfulness minute. As we always have before our main address, we would like to take a moment to clear our minds, relax our bodies, and take some mindful, deep breaths. Please join me for 1 minute of mindful breathing. Thank you, everyone. Our speaker for platform today is Eric Pinto. I'm super excited for him. Eric is connected to the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians and Pueblo of Zuni. He was born and raised in St. Louis. Eric holds a master's degree in social work from Washington University. He currently serves as assistant director for the Catherine M. Booter Center for American Studies. He is also a wonderful human all around. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Eric Pinto.
I really need to know where I'm at. Slide-wise. Halito, Keshe, hello. My name is Eric Pinto. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for coming on out. I love doing these types of talks, presentations, getting out in the community, talking about Native people, myself, my family, to tell that story, to tell you a little bit more about, the land that we live on, Native people, Native history, and all that sort of stuff. So, today's presentation, I'll be discussing about Native visibility, which Anne was kind of interesting that you're talking about invisibility, because Native people have been in that type of role where we're not seen, our voices aren't always heard, and people kind of think of us in the past sense. So I'm here to kind of update you all, but at the same time talk about the land that we're on. So I don't have to really give my intro since you did a wonderful introduction to me, so thank you. At the Booter Center, I'm involved in student affairs, recruitment, and I'll share about that recruitment process and everything. We're involved in numerous projects, event planning. Once again, it's to support Native people, communities, and also to help educate and create awareness for non-Native folks. A little bit about the Booter Center. So it was created in 1990 by Catherine M. Booter. So she had a passion for supporting Native folks. She created scholarships for Native students who want to pursue a master's in social work. So that's where I go out into Native communities. Like I just got back not too long ago from Minnesota. I went to numerous tribal colleges, a lot of the University of Minnesota university locations to share information about our program at the Brown School. So we have a master's in social work, public health, and also social policy. And yet we're the only MSW program that actually has an American Indian Alaskan Native concentration. So students, they get one course per semester with a Native professor that's focused on like Indigenous mental health, policy, a variety of different topics too. So, but we're the only program that has that. Other programs around the country may only have like a couple courses here and there to offer to students. And this is our team. So we have our director, Dr. Pam Begay, her husband, Manasseh Begay, and then Lynn Mitchell, who's our program coordinator. Dr. Begay and Manasseh, they are professors at WashU, and they bring Indigenous perspectives into their teachings as well to help inform and educate our students, since they're coming from all parts around the world. We collaborate with numerous organizations around St. Louis, especially like the St. Louis Art Museum, St. Louis Zoo, SIUE, Missouri Humanities, Missouri History Museum. So it goes on. We really support like all the different programs that are happening in St. Louis, because sometimes they don't know what direction to go with. They don't know who to talk to. And so, you know, we help each other in that type of way. And actually, did anyone attend the Indigenous Knowledge and Sustainability event series at all the past 3 days? No? So one person? Yeah. So we had Indigenous speakers come down from like Montana and Canada, and they spoke about like our relationships with the buffalo, which was amazing, and restorative efforts as far as like bringing the buffalo back to the land and how it's healed the land and also themselves. So that's how we kind of network with one another here in St. Louis. Yeah, and we also have a land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgements are help serve as like creating accountability, responsibility with organizations and institutions. So our land acknowledgement at Washington University reads, the Catherine and Booter Center at Washington University in St. Louis occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Osage Nation, Oto Missouri, Illinois Confederacy, Quapaw, Ho-Chunk, Miami, and many other tribes as the custodians of the land where we reside and occupy and call home. We recognize their sovereignty was never ceded after unjust removal and encourage your own research on tribal removal, tribal sovereignty, and the history of the land you reside. We promote the inclusion of tribal history and the incorporation of contemporary thoughts and actions into your work. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm and support tribal sovereignty, history, and experiences of elders past, present, and 7 generations yet to come through their continued connection to this land. So we mentioned the tribes within that land acknowledgement. There's a ton of different tribes that have connections to this land here in St. Louis. St. Louis is so rich in Native history. So as I mentioned, the ones that I really mentioned have like really long-term settlements here in Missouri. And then then there's other tribes that we inserted, and many other tribes, because you know, how do we define home? You know, different groups may say like, well, we call this home because this is where we, you know, let's say traditionally hunted and gathered, you know, food items and things. So they might still call home. Or maybe a long time ago, their people came, they utilized the river systems down here for trading, but they still call this home. So that's why like the list could be continuous and could keep going on. Many of those tribes are moved into Oklahoma due to the Indian Removal Act of 1830. So there are no tribes in the state of Missouri. And then the list off to the right-hand side, that's the other extensive list I was talking about that other tribes may have some type of connection to St. Louis and Missouri. Yeah, and every tribe is very unique in their own way. So when we talk about Native people, we're not all necessarily on the same level. You might say there's numerous similarities with maybe our beliefs, languages, cultural practices and stuff, but each individual tribe is very unique in their own way. So when we think of like how we see Native American people portrayed in media and other areas, you know, sometimes it gets kind of like a pan-Native American essence, and we got to kind of get away from that, open our minds up that every tribe is very special in their own way. And even talking about like, you know, especially like looking at governance, every tribal nation is a sovereign nation. So think of that, we have nations within the United States. And we have connections to this land for thousands of years. The mound that you see behind me, that's Naniwaya. So that's an origin mound with the Choctaw people. Has anyone seen the show Echo? Disney show? So there's depictions of that story in that show. But our people, the way it goes is that our people came out from that mound. And then you see it in, all around the land. You might see like the medicine wheel or, petroglyphs, rock carvings, different things, mounds that show that our people have been here for hundreds and thousands of years, all across the Americas. And even, and I say the Americas because archaeologists are finding sites that go back, 20,000 plus years, go all the way down into South America. And then when we learn about Native people and where we come from, we have to understand that many of those curriculum items are theories. So we learn about like migration theories, that Native people came from Asia and crossed over Beringia or, but our DNA is not connected to any Asian groups. And archaeologists keep on finding sites and artifacts that keep on pushing the date back. So really, we don't know what those stories are. But that's the other part, is that oftentimes what we're learning in the classroom and in books, sometimes they dismiss our stories and things. So now archaeologists are actually listening to our stories and matching up what they find through Western science, and they're like, oh yeah, actually Native people are right. This, what we're talking about is found right here. Yeah. And so when we look at Native people through time, you'll oftentimes see these archaeological terms referring to Native cultures, not necessarily the names of the people. And throughout Missouri, we have depictions of that. This poster up behind me is projectile points. You got spear points, arrowheads, things like that. All these different tools are used in different ways. You see the different colors and rocks. Our people were so connected with the earth that they knew, like, the different types of rocks and which ones, were best for, flint knapping and everything. So, and some of these rocks too don't even come from the state of Missouri. Some of them are coming from different parts around the nation. So when we think about like the Paleo-Indian period, so think about like, hey, that's the real deep past ancestors that were hunting like, mastodons, mammoths, giant sloths, all those guys. And there's actually a site here in Missouri that you can go to that shows that, proves that. At Mastodon State Park off 55. Archaeologists found spear points next to bones, mastodon bones. And there's an interpretive center you can go there. Has anyone been there before? Yeah, numerous, yeah, see? Yeah, archaic period, so, so that Paleo-Indian period, archaeologists kind of think like, our people were hunting and gathering, we're moving along a lot. Archaic period is believed that, we started settling down. That's our settling down period. We started, we're still hunting, gathering, but we're also incorporating more agricultural practices. One site that you can go to is Graham State Park. Has anyone been there? Yeah. So that would be kind of like during that archaic period. Yeah. Woodland period, populations are starting to grow now. Okay, we're hunting more. We got our gardens going and everything. And you see transitions with these cultures. And what I mean by culture, it's like looking at technology, practices, things like that. So one thing would be like even pottery making. How they made pots through over time even changed, because in this woodland period they started using basically crushing like mussel shells and things and putting that into the clay, and that helped create a better temper for creating stronger pottery. And another site you can go to is Dames Mound out in O'Fallon. So that's another place. Hey, Native people were there during that time. Proves that. Mississippian period. I assume a lot of people have been to Cahokia Mounds, right? Yeah. So, yeah, Cahokia Mounds is very, it displays all of that. Monk's Mound, one of the largest mounds that, people have made, stands 100 foot tall. I forget how wide and deep that base is, but it's huge. It's amazing. There's so many mounds there, so many stories. Once again, though, some of the stories I think don't listen to Native teachings, because I talk to Native relatives who come through here, and I discuss like some of the things like, I think there's a depiction about Native people and practicing these ritual sacrifices and things like that. and they found, remains that, there was decapitation and hands chopped off and stuff. But I'm like, that doesn't sound like religious sacrifice to me. That sounds more like a punishment, So, and I talked to this with Native relatives, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds more like punishment. So sometimes some of these stories, we have to be careful where we're learning when we're learning about Native people. And, there's tons of mound sites all around St. Louis. Sugarloaf Mound down in South St. Louis. There was Big Mound. It's been destroyed. There's a story about that, and now there's like a little monument there. But yeah, you can read all about Mississippians' culture, period, all around St. Louis. And even out in Chesterfield, Mark Leach is protecting a site out there in Chesterfield. It's developing. So we've actually approached Chesterfield City Council and said, like, hey, you all need to be careful when digging, doing these new developments and things, because you don't know if you might run into remains. Some of these sites are very significant to Native people. Think it's like on a more spiritual level. Yeah. And when we get into more of this like kind of proto-historic area, that's when, Europeans start coming over. And actually one of the first, and we're most familiar with, like, you hear stories about Leif Erikson and Columbus, those guys being like the first Europeans coming over. In St. Louis, Père Marquette, and I'm sure a lot of people probably heard Père Marquette, like State Park and such. Yeah, so he was like the first, if you want to say European, to come down this far back in the 1500s. And so what happened, Native people were all over the place. We're millions of people all over the land. Like I said, like everywhere, there's mounds and Forest Park. I mean, I kind of like to know, like, what did this landscape, if we removed all these buildings and things like that, what would the landscape would have looked like back then through time, and what would that transition be, like having like a time machine and seeing those transitions. So yeah, I'm going to show this video here that will show what happened to Native people. And so this places us basically in the late 1700s. And you'll see a map. So the map will have blue, which indicates Native territory, where tribes were at. All right. Now look at the state of Missouri. And when it hits about 1830, look what happens. And it's moving quick. So 1830, that's when you had the Indian Removal Act. So that's when the federal government enforced that act to remove Native people from their ancestral lands and place them onto reservation lands. For those who don't know, reservation lands were basically like lands that the government thought were not very productive, not highly sought after. Until later on, you hear stories like, hey, there's actually minerals, there's oil, there's basically all kinds of money underneath you. We want those lands back. So. But yeah, and this is what the reservation system kind of looks like today. Navajo Nation, or Dene people, like they have the largest reservation down in the Four Corners area. Yeah, so that's kind of where Native people are at today. But when you look at where the population, our people are at, most of the Native people actually don't live on the reservations now. It's over like 75% of Native people live off the reservation. There's 574 federally recognized tribes, so that's federally recognized. There's also state recognized tribes, and there's tribes that aren't even recognized. And yeah, not every tribe has a reservation necessarily. They don't have that land base. In the state of Missouri, we only make up 2.5% of the population. So that's why you don't really see much of us here. But then if you go down to like Arizona, New Mexico, or maybe up north, you'll see a lot more Native people there. And there's no tribes in the state of Missouri or Illinois. Along with that act of 1830 and around that time frame, Missouri actually passed a statute that prevented Native people from coming back into the state, and they had to receive special permission from an agent or the governor. Yeah. So that's why we don't have a very high population here in St. Louis and in the state, and you don't see those tribes here. Yeah. And then throughout time too, our traditional beliefs have been attacked. There was a time where, we thought that Europeans thought that, we were, paganist people, that that we needed to be transitioned into, other faiths to save ourselves. So that's been an ongoing issue ever since the 1800s, and actually there was finally a federal policy in the 1970s that allowed us to take on and perform our traditional ceremonies and beliefs and things. But we still even have issues where even today where, our beliefs are being kind of, if you want to say, appropriated and taken in different formats, and, people are trying to replicate the ceremonies and things, but it's not in a good way. Boarding schools, that's getting a lot of attention now. So boarding schools, Native people, children were taken a lot of times from their families and sent to these boarding schools from the mid-1800s all the way up to 1970s. These boarding schools, were ran by the government and different church denominations. And basically it was another assimilative effort to transition Native people into dominant American culture. You see transitions in one picture where, you see Native people in their, traditional wear, they have long hair and everything, but then their hair is eventually chopped off. They can't speak their languages. If they do, they're oftentimes, abused, punished, different formats. And I mean, you can see there's a lot of documentaries out there, there's movies that kind of depict that, what happened. But, those children, I mean, they were attacked and it created trauma that we still see even today. And you hear stories in the media now that they're finding, hundreds of children that were actually, they were killed there, either due to sickness or abuse, things like that. But I'm being real, I'm sharing, this is the history of the land that we're on. And even in St. Louis, there was a boarding school up in Florissant. There's off Powder Shell, actually right down the road from my house. I always kind of scratched my head. I was like, I feel like there's something interesting about this place here. But it's literally right off the main road of Powder Shell, and that was a boarding school. It only had about a dozen students. It didn't last very long. We don't really know the story and details, but, so folks are trying to do research, reading through the journals of the Jesuits and see what actually went on there. And so in the mid-1930s, there was what was called the Indian Reorganization Act. So the government was thinking, hey, we want to actually stop controlling what you all are doing, and we want to make sure that, tribes have, a sense of governance and sovereignty within themselves. Because oftentimes that was overlooked. The federal government always, basically want to put their hands into, what's going on with Native people and such. So in the 1930s, that's when that act happened. And one thing that that Native people had to do was create a constitution, and which is kind of, it's not necessarily our way, like we have our own way of governing ourselves. But one thing, and in my introduction, I usually say, I'm connected with Mississippi Band Choctaw Indians and Zuni tribe, but I'm non-enrolled. And so enrollment is a part of that constitution. What does it mean to be Native? And people have different definitions of that. Some people think just as long as you carry a tribal ID card, we're the only group of people that has to prove that we're actually Native American, oftentimes based off of blood quantum. So people will ask, well, how much Indian are you, or how much Native are you? That's a very colonial way of asking folks. I often suggest maybe ask who's your ancestors? What's your lineage? In that type of way. Because what it does is that it affects Native sovereignty. If Native people are marrying outside non-Native people, or maybe Native people not within their tribe, their sovereignty, the tribe may then be affected. The government may say well, you don't actually have enough Choctaw people in your tribe. You're no longer recognized. We're going to terminate you, and you're no longer a tribe, and your lands are susceptible for us to buy and utilize how we like. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle. Choctaw has the highest blood quantum requirement, 50%, solely their tribe. I'm also Zuni, which requires 25%. But when I tried enrolling with the Zuni tribe, they were like, well, your dad's enrolled with Mississippi Choctaw. You can't enroll with Zuni. So I'm like, well, I'm stuck. And then I get attacked even with folks within the Native community that say well, you're not enrolled with a tribe. And, you're not, what does it mean to be Native? How are you Native then? And, so we often have those conversations even with our own people. But a lot of times people don't know about tribal enrollment and what it means, those tribal cards and all that. Yeah. Urban relocation program, 1950s. St. Louis is actually one of those cities, so the federal government actually wanted to have a program that emphasized like jobs and economic opportunities for Native people during that time to leave reservations. It was another assimilative effort, basically. So, and I'm a product of that. So my grandparents, my grandma came up from the Choctaw tribe in Mississippi, grandfather from Zuni. They met up here in St. Louis, had a family in St. Charles. But they didn't pass along, a lot of those traditional beliefs and teachings and the language and things. So that shows you that that program worked. So I'm having to go back and teach myself all these things. Yeah. During that time too, urban Indian centers were created by Native folks. So like this picture here is of one in Minneapolis, brand new one they redid. We had one in St. Louis, but it closed down, I think, in the early 2000s. But we're looking to work with the local Native community and bring that back. Yeah, we had changes in their food systems. Everybody knows, hey, they've heard corns, beans, squash. You're familiar with the game, deer, turkey. Buffalo, is making a comeback in, on our reservations and different areas, state parks, national parks and such. But when those foods were lost, think about how that affects your health. Think about how, like, if you're only eating like fast food all the time, you're not getting those healthy food items and things, how does that affect your health? So when we transition to more that Euro-American style of eating, switching from, buffalo to cattle, turkey to, chickens and things like that, that's affecting our health. And that's why over the course of time too, we see all these different health issues going on, like higher rates of diabetes, hypertension, and it also affects the mental health as well too. More contemporary issues that we deal with our communities is missing, murder, Indigenous women and girls. A lot of people don't understand that, like, in around reservations, a lot of those girls and women are susceptible to being taken. They face a lot of abuse and things. Sometimes that's sometimes domestic violence, within the family itself, and a lot of times it's non-Native people that are actually committing these crimes. And there's jurisdictional issues that actually affect how we prosecute people that commit these crimes. So Native women and girls are at such a high rate of being abused, taken, and fallen into human trafficking. People don't know about that. But I can tell you that, a good depiction is, you can watch a movie called Wind River. I don't know if anyone has seen that before, but that shows you, like, hey, there was a natural gas company that was right next to a reservation. And the men that were working there, because oftentimes they call man camps, men are working in those areas, they venture onto the reservations and then that's when issues start happening. And then the problem is that oftentimes those people aren't prosecuted in the appropriate manner. And so all these things add up, and it creates what's called historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, and on top of that, we have numerous inequities that affect our people. When we look at, like, even healthcare, we have what's called Indian Health Services, funded by the federal government. It's kind of like integrated health. Think of it like a public health care system that we have here in St. Louis and Missouri, but it doesn't provide everything. And oftentimes, like, Native people aren't receiving the appropriate treatments, and they don't listen to us too. Sometimes, hey, we want to follow our traditional medicines and beliefs and things, but a lot of times through Western medicine, it's not treating us in the right ways. But you can see here that, hey, Native people were in the blue bars, like, we have so many health issues going on that is way higher than non-Native folks. And that is oftentimes unseen as well too. But luckily, Native people are revitalizing. They're bringing back so many things like our traditional beliefs, our ceremonies, our languages, practices, knowledges, and all those different things that ultimately heal ourselves, okay? Heal our people, and give us our self-identity. And healing with the land. As I mentioned, we had a conference here that, spoke a lot about bringing back the buffalo and what the buffalo did. It's not only meant to think as like the buffalo is like a food source, but it's our relative. Everything, and you kind of mentioned it in the core values that, we're part of this world, and the world's part of us. Like, we're all interconnected with everything, and we need to follow back on that. The plants, the animals, the elements, fire, water, the air, everything. I mean, we're all interconnected. And even if you want to say even the seats that you're sitting in, the wood I'm on, essentially it's all comes down to, if you want to say atoms and things, forces holding things together and stuff. We're going to be connected on some sort of level, right? So, but we're utilizing, falling back on what the land does to heal ourselves and our communities. Cultural appropriation. That's one thing I like to cover, like when reaching out to the community. Cultural appropriation is a big issue going on right now. We see that with like models, using like headdresses, regalia, things like that. I get some phone calls from Boy Scouts asking if, I don't know if anyone's in Boy Scouts, but I do get folks that call me asking me, hey, we want to do a Native American ceremony to like kind of transition the boys to the men or something like that. That would fall as cultural appropriation. So don't want to do that because that's replicating like ceremonies and things like that. Some items that you may purchase or commercialize, they might actually not be made by us. They're made from like China or India, things like that. So be careful of those things. I mentioned before, like sometimes their ceremonies and medicines are being taken. So like sage, that's being appropriated in numerous ways, commercialized. So being careful with that. We see it with logos. Luckily, Land O'Lakes butter, they removed that logo. So we see that clothing items, patterns, things like that. And then we see it in sports. We got numerous Kansas City Chiefs fans, but I like to mention that, oftentimes they're like, I hear people say like, well, Native people say that they support, and I'm like, well, I'm scratching my head because I'm like, funny, because many of the tribal leaders and Native organizations don't support that. So I'm kind of wondering, who are they getting this information from? Oftentimes it's self-identified Native people, individual voices that say like, I support that. We don't look at, Native people don't do that. Like, you don't say like, my voice represents Native people across. We need to go back to our teachings. It's like our leaders, our elders, and the leaders of those organizations and such. They're in those places for reasons. And they don't really support these mascots. One, it creates misrepresentations of Native people, appropriation with like our regalia. People don't understand that feathers are kind of like a symbol of like servitude. Think it's like a medal that you may receive in the military. So if you think that like maybe the Plains Indians tribes, they have those big long headdresses. Not every tribe utilizes them, but if you look at some of those ones, think about the amount of feathers that person, that individual had to acquire. So it's the same thing as like them serving in the military, and they received so many medals and badges and things. Things like, you see like the chop and all that. We didn't do that. That stuff was made up, okay? Yeah. And then things like the drum, the big drum, that's something that's sacred within certain tribes and things. So, some of these things do get appropriated in different ways. And I look at, too, a lot of these organizations, they make millions of dollars, not billions of dollars, right? Where's the relationship where they give back to Native people and communities to help out with all those inequities and health and issues that I would mention before? I don't really see that too often. I don't see those stories. So, and in the background of those stories of obtaining those names, they did not ask for permission. They did not work with a tribe in any format. Sometimes now you see those transitions, like the Florida State Seminoles. They have a relationship with the Seminole tribe, or organizations change their mascots. Like the Cleveland Indians, they change over to the Guardians now, or the Redskins, racial slur by the way, and they change over to the Commanders. Just things like that. So we do try to indigenize these spaces as well too. Pop culture. You kind of see like the one logo here, looks like Starbucks. Disney. Things like involving history. So that Custard, a little Battle of Little Bighorn and such. So we always have shirts and things like that, things that kind of relate to pop culture or whatever. Even my shirts. So these shirts were made by what the group called the Natives, and my shirts from the Natives as well too. So Even like, our history is tied into American history. We're tied into the Constitution. This reads merciless savages, Indian savages. That's how we were viewed back then. Deb Haaland, Secretary of Interior. So, look, she's doing great stuff, and she provides that Native perspective that, I think is highly needed, that we need those Native folks in the room with our politicians. Art, this is art by Cara Romero. She was featured at St. Louis Art Museum. So, these Pulitzer Arts Foundation, Contemporary Arts Museum, they're doing all kinds of great things, inviting Native artists. And when you look at Native art and things, it does tell so much stories about Native people and history and things. It's awesome. Social media, we got Jim Che. He's a hilarious guy. So if you scroll through TikTok and things, you might find Native American videos that are like, there's plenty of comedians out there that you come across. And in the film industry, Killer's Flower Moon, has anyone seen that or read that book? Yeah. So that's also the history of the Osage people. Unfortunately, sad history because they're on oil land, and there's numerous murders being happened on their reservation. So that movie, that novel depicts that. Reservation Dogs, that shows Native people, kind of like in our own element living on the reservation system. Yeah. So how can you support Native people? Research Native history that you live on, support Native communities through your work, or what things that you like to do, maybe different hobbies and such. Develop relationships with Native people and communities. You can donate to different initiatives and organizations. So if you're a big environmentalist, well, hey, look at like our food sovereignty projects, such as supporting the buffalo, or is there gardens and things that we're trying to do. So there's plenty of things out there to donate to. Even we have a powwow that happens every year. Has anyone been to our powwow before? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's free and open to the public. That's going to be April 12th, 2025. So you're all more than welcome to come on out. We do host a trivia night to help fund that because we're a nonprofit. So we got to come out with, thousands of dollars to put this on. So we host that on November 2nd, coming up here pretty soon, Halloween themed. So if anyone's interested, you can visit our website for more information. And attend other Native events besides our powwow and trivia night. Look at what's happening out in the community. St. Louis County Parks is actually hosting a Native American Heritage Month speaking series, and some of our students are actually talking. And I think a former speaker that came here, Galen Gritz, he'll be talking as well too. Yeah. And then there's resources that the Booter Center provides to help educate, create that awareness. So, you want more about the Native history stuff. Hey, I wrote an extensive report that you can download and skim through that, and it tells you, things more about Native people and history on this land. Things about land acknowledgments, if your organization is willing to create that, and other variety of things too. Yeah. So, Yako Ki, and thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Someone didn't do phone time. All right, don't look at them. They're already embarrassed enough. Thank you so much, Eric. I so appreciate that. Also, that was really incredible to me that there are people in our membership whose lifetime includes the end of the boarding schools. It just makes it so clear that it was so recently that we were doing that. Eric cannot stay afterward, but he was encouraging folks to go ahead and email him if you have any questions. And his email is on the Booter website. You can just find it there. Great. Okay, we're now going to be doing the collection. The welcome team will now take up a collection to support the society. We rely on your generosity of members and friends, so please consider donating. If you don't have cash with you today, you can donate at Ethical Society or ethicalstl.org/donate, or you can use the QR code that's on the screen. And we appreciate anything you are able to offer. If you are interested in joining the Ethical Society, or you are a visitor and would like to know more about the society, please visit the Visitors Connect table downstairs after platform today whoever is there is always super friendly and nice, so go say hello. I have 100 announcements. That's an exaggeration, but there's a lot of them, so get comfy. First, there is a special announcement from Amy and the Board of Trustees and the hiring team. All members and interested friends are welcome to stick around after platform for a brief announcement in the auditorium regarding some exciting developments. This is the auditorium, in case that's not clear. The announcement will be widely distributed afterward via various methods and surely will spread via word of mouth. So please do not fret if you can't make it. We just want to give folks a chance to absorb and ask a few questions. For transparency's sake, and because we know members are concerned, we want to let you know developments as quickly as we can. I'm enticed. I'm going to stay. Okay, there is a TWA bake sale today in the Becker Room after platform. All proceeds to social causes and ethical society. Get your goodies while they last. They're always tasty. Also, we have a new art exhibit out in this area, so please join our artist in the foyer for his reception today from 12:30 to 2. We're about like halfway through. These are all very important. This is our service Sunday announcement. We will be having it on the 10th or the 13th. The 20th, the 27th, and then November 3rd and 10th. Our annual service, is that when you wanted me to announce this? Yes. I'm so sorry. It's not happening that many days. Okay, our annual service Sunday platform is scheduled for Sunday, November 17th. Nursery childcare will be provided for our youngest kiddos, but everyone else will have the opportunity to do community service together and put our ethics into action. We have a variety of options planned that are inclusive of ages and abilities, and we encourage you to mark your calendars for this wonderful community event. We will again collect warming items in partnership with the Atheist Alliance Helping the Homeless. Please review the Amazon wish list for ideas of what is needed and donate if you are able, and bring your items on November 17th. Direct your questions to Crystal White, who I don't see, but is an amazing, or the youth group, great. Okay, here we go. Hey there, fellow trainers. Wait, I want to tell you something. In case you are not familiar with Pokemon, I thought I'd tell you one of the jokes in here. Magikarp is a fantastic Pokemon who is just a fish, and when you get them out to fight, they just flop around on the ground. It's very upsetting. But Magikarp evolves into like one of the most powerful Pokemon of all the Pokemon. So listen for Magikarp. Okay, hey there, fellow trainers. We're on the lookout for some volunteers to help teach the next generation how to be Pokemon masters. If you're ready to set up and help, we promise it will be a guaranteed fun. Are you good at dodging tackle attacks? Can you diglet your way out of a tricky situation? If your idea of a good time is throwing Pokeballs and not just gulping snacks, then we want you to volunteer during activity hour from 11 to noon Sunday mornings. You can sign up for one session or several, whatever your trainer's schedule allows. Join us for a Magikarp-tastic time and help our trainers reach new heights battling and trading. Who knows, you might even discover a legendary friendship. Let's make this an amusing adventure together. Please see Megan and Courtney after platform or send them an email at youth@ethicalsociety.org. Also, clarification, it's the Pokemon card game, not one of the other many ways you can play Pokemon. Okay, the Ethical Society's Trivia Night will be back this fall on Saturday, October 19th. Our theme this year is Around the World. Doors will be open 6 p.m. Trivia rounds start at 7. It is $25 per person or $200 for a full table of 8. Sign up individually or with friends. You can register online using the QR code that is not up there, or in the Becker Room after platform on September 22nd. Or today, yes. Thank you. Don't miss out on the fun October 19th. 2 more. Member and photographer Jim Rhodes has again offered to take portrait photos of Ethical Society members. He will be taking photographs after platforms today, the 20th and the 27th. This is the perfect opportunity to create a professional quality image to use for work or a holiday card. Each session will last 15 minutes and will cost $25. You can register online for a specific date and time and pay via PayPal or using a QR code. This fundraiser benefits the Ethical Society. Reserve your session ASAP. All right, we made it. There's one more. Okay, what do you think? A couple of weeks ago, the board asked that members start to help guide our future by evaluating open questions, a series of ideas and statements related to our community reputation and how we can better support our members' ethical actions. Okay, by show of hands, who has given that a try? I think that's the same people who raised their hands last time. Go on there, try it, it's cool. To date, only 11 people have responded. This is our society, all voices are needed. Please participate in this process. We make much better decisions when we combine our diverse ideas and perspectives. You can find the link on the members area of the website. You can go to ethicalstl.org/conversations or use a QR code. Remember, these links are open in our private members area only, so you will need your ID and password to participate. If you have forgotten them, please ask. So please tell us what you think. Oh my gosh, we made it through announcements. Everyone applaud. Okay. Oh, there's one more, the built-in one. We would love to keep you informed about future events at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. Here are 4 ways you can do that. You can sign up for a weekly newsletter. You can check the Friends of the Ethical Society Facebook group, email the relevant staff person or member, and finally, you can check out the bulletin board downstairs by the northwest entrance. This is a busy and vibrant place, and volunteering is awesome. Okay, so we have our final music selection. And here come Jim and Ben again. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us. Sure appreciate it. Jim and I, we don't play out that much, but this is kind of a fun week. We've got another gig on Friday at the Gelateria on Grand. If you want to hear more of our music, please come on down and see us. This is Boys. Big Boys, Big Brother.
Thank you so much, Ben and Jim. That was beautiful. Very rhythmic. I really enjoyed that. Okay, we're about 5 minutes over. If you need to duck out, I understand, but I only have a few more words. Thank you all for being here today, for each other, and for yourselves. I hope today's platform helped you feel more connected to one another and motivated you to pursue causes that you are passionate about. For next Sunday, I invite you to return to hear from Executive Director Jessica Seitz about her organization Monaca and their work and mission. I also invite you to spend more time in community today. There is coffee and tea in the Becker Room downstairs where you can connect with both new and old friends. If you don't know where the Becker Room is, just follow the crowd down the stairs or the elevator. Thank you for being here. I hope the rest of your day and week suits you just as you are.
Yeah, you did. I'm gonna give people a minute. If you're planning to stay for our brief announcement, please either move forward or just stay seated. We'll give people just a minute to move out. Oh, the what? Oh, that's also under here?
Oh,
Okay. Is that everything? Maybe? All right. Is everybody ready? Yes? Yeah? You mean to ring the chime? Good job. I'm like, I didn't want to be like, if you can hear me, clap twice. This is super quick. On August 4th, you remember, many of you were there, we held a forum and let you know that we were in the process of hiring someone to succeed Nancy to cover finance and operations. That was like a very big concern. Everybody very concerned. Nancy's been here a long time. She's a very important, crucial part of the team. But we assembled a team composed of ministry team staff, which was me and Nancy, board members, which were, please stand if you will, Scott Wright and Samantha White, and members, including Kathy Pickard and Clark Hotailing. Here and here, thank you. So we interviewed several promising candidates and unanimously agreed to hire, wait for it, Rachel Jones, right? Very exciting. Who has been a member of the society since 2017 and currently serves as our board secretary. Don't worry, Rachel's secretarial responsibilities will be assumed by Samantha White, for which we are very grateful. So Rachel's start date is November 18th, 2024, to allow some overlap with me and a longer overlap with Nancy. We have plans in the works, so get excited about that, to hire a full-time person to meet the other needs of the community for the person-centered aspects and outreach, etc. You will have many opportunities to speak with us, any of us, over the next few months. When we have more information, we will have more meetings and forums, and there is a board platform on November 24th when hopefully we can share next steps. But for now, we do have Nancy covered in Rachel Jones, and I would love to give Rachel one more warm welcome round of applause. Thank you. You're free to go drink coffee or whatever you're going to do.